Hey everybody, I'm Brian. Let's go do some woodworking. So today we're going to talk about how to sharpen a scraper. I generally, when I sharpen a scraper, only worry about sharpening one surface on the scraper. Some people will sharpen all 4 edges of a scraper, but I find that if I just keep one sharp and keep it tuned up while I'm working, that's plenty. I don't have to worry about cutting myself on other edges. So the first step is to put it in your vise. Here I'm not using a vise, I'm just using a Jorgensen clamp. So whatever you want to use. Then you're going to use a file. I have 2 files here. One is a fine metal file and the other one is an axe file, which has 2 different cuts on it. One of the cuts is for a heavier cut and one is for a light cut. I recommend that you use a light cutting file to get the smoother surface. So you take the file and hold it on the surface at 90 degrees. And I generally use my fingertips beside it to sort of guide it and keep my thumbs up on the top. And then, just as though you're hand planing a piece of wood, go along the top of it and try and get the entire surface of the file contacting the scraper blade until you see an even cut all the way along it. And I'm pretty happy with that. So now we've brought the scraper over to the sharpening stones. I have a 1000 grit stone and an 8000 grit stone. And we're going to sharpen the edge of this just like we would any other edge tool. I'm going to start on the medium stone and finish on the fine stone. We don't want to hold the scraper straight because we will score a line into the stone and make a little groove in our stone. I don't want to wreck my stone that way. So I'm going to hold the scraper at an angle so that I'm using more surface area on the stone and sharpening my scraper at the same time. So I'm going to hold it with 2 hands. I'm going to make sure I'm at 90 degrees to the surface, and I'm going to go back and forth. And I'm going to keep an eye on the dullness of the edge of my scraper to make sure that I've filed the whole edge. Now that I've finished on this stone, I'm going to go to my next stone and sharpen on it. And just like any edge tool has the back of its blade lapped for smoothness, I'm also going to take my scraper and I'm going to lay it on my fine stone, and I'm just going to go back and forth a little bit. I tend to do this every time I sharpen it, and over time it's just created a smoother surface on my scraper, and it makes that 90-degree edge I'm going for a little sharper. So now I've done that on both stones and I'm ready to roll a burr onto the scraper. Okay, so now we're going to do the fun part, which is rolling the burr onto the scraper. This is called a burnishing tool, and it is meant for the sole purpose of rolling a burr onto a scraper. But you don't have to have one. You can also use an old chisel, which is made of carbon steel, it's very hard, or you can use a screwdriver, which is also hard steel. So you don't have to have the burnishing tool, but I'm going to use it for doing it here. So you also need a little bit of oil, and so I'm just using 3-in-1 oil. It's not important what kind of oil you use. You just want to lubricate the surface of the metal as you're sharpening. So I'll put a few drops on there. I'll spread the oil around onto the scraper. Put a little bit on the edge. This is now sharp, so don't cut yourself. And then I'll often just put a little bit on the burnishing tool that I'm going to use. I'm going to sit the scraper back from the edge just a little bit. I'm going to hold onto it with this hand. Then I'm going to choke up on the end of the burnishing tool. And the first thing I want to do is roll the steel down. So I'm going to put my burnishing tool on here. I'm going to concentrate pressure on the edge by lifting it just slightly. And then I'm going to begin going back and forth until I fall off of it. And I guess in the olden days they used to call these clickers, because when you get good at it, you get a clicking sound. So now I can actually see from my point of view that I've rolled the metal down just enough at the edge there. And when I've done that, I'm still leaving all the oil on. I'm going to now stick the scraper off of the edge, and that burr that I've rolled down off, I want that pointing up. So to do that, I've got my burnishing tool at 90 degrees, and I've got sort of a back angle here. I can actually feel it. It's like a little wire. And I'm going to start rolling that wire up. And at a certain point, you'll be able to very clearly feel with your finger that you've rolled that burr up onto that surface. Now, when we did this, we've done it with sharpening stones. Some people only do this with a file, and you can just file it, burnish it, and use it. That's fine. But if you want a little bit smoother cut, a little bit nicer cut, I do recommend using the stones and taking the time to do it. So this is now ready to use. So let's see how it works. Okay, so now I've clamped a piece of wood to the bench, and when you're using a scraper, you should get shavings. You shouldn't get just dust. If all you're getting is dust, it's not quite sharp enough. And when I hold it, you can hold it almost vertical, but you should sort of tilt forward a little bit. I keep my fingers on the outsides, and I have both my thumbs on the back. And I'm concentrating pressure to wherever I want it on the cutting edge. And as it dulls, say you've dulled this a little bit, I can move my thumbs over and use this edge a little bit. I can use this edge a little bit, and evenly use the entire edge of the scraper until it's dull, and then I'll resharpen it. And it's important to note that when you do go to resharpen it, you can re-roll the burr onto this scraper that's been sharpened 3 or 4 times before you need to go back and refile it again. So don't bother going back and doing the entire process. Just lift that burr back up again, and you can use it a second, a third, and if you're careful, maybe a 4th time. So let's see how it works. So we've taken some nice shavings, no dust. It worked very well. One thing to note, that when you're using these, the back will get very hot as you're using it, and you'll discover that. You can burn your thumbs from the cutting force of the blade. That's how you sharpen a scraper.